3 months after the breakup, Lily suddenly received a call from her ex-boyfriend. The familiar voice instantly brought tears to her eyes. However, what followed was ruthless laughter from the other end of the phone. What kind of story lies behind this? Lily had been tormented by a recurring dream. In order to break free from the dream's entanglement, she started a relationship with Ethan, who resembled the person in her dream. But what awaited her were endless deception and hurt. How will the wheels of fate turn? Come and find out. 3 months after the breakup, my ex-boyfriend suddenly called me. Everyone at the bar has left. Lily, why haven't you come to pick me up and take me home yet? Instantly, my eyes welled up with tears. I fought back a sob and asked him softly where he was. Suddenly, wild laughter burst out from the other end of the phone. He was out of breath as he said, "You're crazy, I'm playing the game of truth or dare. This is just a dare I chose, to complete a challenge set by someone else." I choked up and said, "You can call me whatever you want, Alex. As long as you come home with me." The other end of the line went silent immediately. Damn it, who the hell is Alex? 3 months after the breakup, my illness relapsed again. The dream that I hadn't had for a long time came to torment me once more. In the dream, a gloomy and handsome man kissed me in the most intimate way, but he pressed a gun against my waist. He painfully said he loved me, and then with red eyes, he pulled the trigger. When the gunshot rang out, there were no bullets in the gun. And my dagger without hesitation slashed open his neck. In the dream, the man died. Before he died, there was a triumphant smile on his face, and he asked me to take him home with that smile. A huge wave of sadness washed over my heart, and I woke up gasping for air. It's absurd to say, but this dream has tormented me for 3 years. The heart-wrenching pain in the dream still tortures me after I wake up, making me sink into the pain of losing my lover for a long time. For this reason, I went to see a psychologist. I said I had fallen in love with the person in my dream. After hypnotherapy and sleeping pills didn't help, the doctor suggested that I start a relationship to see if I could transfer my affection. If not, it would be good to withdraw. In this way, to exercise self-control from a certain habitual behavior or substance. That's when Ethan appeared. He looked exactly like the person in my dream. I once thought that he was the Alex in my dream. The same eyebrows and eyes, the same voice, and even the curve of his lips was as nonchalant as Alex's. In the bar, he leaned drunkenly in the corner with hazy eyes, grabbed the hem of my clothes, and asked me if I could take him home. That glance felt like that it had spanned a lifetime. I thought my Alex had finally stepped out of my dream. I took him home and stayed by his side on the sofa the whole night. But when he opened his eyes and met my sad gaze, he was overjoyed. He laughed so hard that his shoulders shook. So nothing happened. I'm a bit disappointed. As he spoke, he glanced at my neckline. Next time, pull your neckline lower, and I might not fall asleep so quickly. Even though he was unreasonable, the sense of fate made me put aside my dignity and get together with him. At first, I was hopelessly in love with him. On a red sunset evening, I would worry about gains and losses and ask him if he would never leave me. In the middle of the night when I woke up from a start, I would reach out and touch his neck to make sure there were no wounds before I could fall asleep peacefully. I repaid all the debts I felt I owed to Alex in my dream to him, indulging him infinitely. I cleaned up the messes he caused without any complaints. When he was in the hospital, I took care of him day and night, fearing that he would disappear like in my dream if I blinked. He would also often stare at me in a trance and murmur why he hadn't met me earlier. At that time, I didn't understand the deep meaning of his words until that Valentine's Day date. Ethan, who had always been low-key, suddenly went on a high-profile date with me. In an upscale restaurant, he came towards me with a bouquet of flowers. His lazy steps and burning gaze attracted the attention of many girls. Some even took out their phones to take pictures. He glanced at the person taking the picture and smiled. "Take a nice shot." Then he leaned down and planted a long, lingering kiss on my lips. I heard something in my chest that is a violent crash, as if it was about to overflow. Amid the cheering, he asked the person for the photo and posted it on Instagram. I wondered if he was finally going to take this absurdly started relationship seriously. However, after doing all this, he seemed a bit absent-minded. In the face of my joy and uneasiness, he perfunctorily answered me and checked his phone from time to time. Until he received a call from the contact marked A. He suddenly straightened up and glanced out the window subtly. I told him to go and deal with the matter if he had something urgent, but he hung up the phone and gave me a doting smile. "Spending time with you is the most important thing today." As he spoke, he picked up a piece of salad and fed it to me affectionately. He probably didn't even realize that he had fed me the salad that was used for decoration. After feeding me, he picked up a napkin to wipe my mouth, even though there was nothing dirty on my lips. A bad premonition welled up in my heart. Sure enough, after a series of intimate actions, the phone started ringing frantically. Over and over again. Ethan showed a troubled smile and then pretended to reluctantly say that there was something urgent at the company and he had to leave first. I smiled and told him to go and come back quickly. He looked at me with a complicated expression, hesitated for a few seconds, and then couldn't wait to turn around and leave. I followed him on a whim and saw a beautiful girl standing downstairs not far away. From that angle, she could clearly see all the actions between Ethan and me in the restaurant. A thought made me shiver. Could this high-profile date of Ethan's be just to show this girl, Lisa? Ethan ran away, but when he got close to Lisa, he slowed down and put on an impatient look. He said he was on a date and told Lisa to say what she had to say quickly. Lisa had an expression of deep regret and asked him why he was demeaning himself. She said, "Even if I don't agree to be your girlfriend, you can't just find someone randomly to devalue yourself. Do you think this is fair to those who care about you?" Ethan was silent for a couple of seconds. His silence was like a judgment on me, declaring that I was indeed the randomly chosen one. After a while, I heard him say angrily, "How do you know I can't really fall in love with her?" Lisa gave a bitter smile. "Don't you know what it feels like to be in love?" As she spoke, she suddenly grabbed Ethan's collar, stood on tiptoe, and kissed him. It was a passionate and domineering kiss, and Ethan stood there stunned. In just an instant, Lisa pulled away, in a state of chaos. This is what it feels like to be attracted. So, Ethan, even if I haven't agreed to be with you, you can't just find someone randomly to devalue yourself. At that moment, I hid behind a pillar and cried silently. Only then did I realize that I wasn't a destined one. I was just someone he randomly found to provoke Lisa. He resented Lisa for being indecisive, so he randomly chose me. He picked me in the bar and said that the colder a person looks on the outside, the wilder they are in private. He bet that I would definitely pick up a drunk person in the bar, and I really did pick him up. Behind the pillar, I was like a voyeur, watching them go from arguing fiercely to embracing and kissing passionately. They were just like the male and female protagonists in a melodramatic novel, and I was just a disposable character. After a heart-wrenching pain in my chest, I decided to break up. But I wasn't sure if it was an illusion. The suffocating feeling that had been pressing on my chest for 3 years because of Alex seemed to have lessened a lot. Perhaps that was what the doctor called withdrawal. That day, Ethan didn't come back until very late. I looked through his Instagram, and the photo of our public display of affection was already gone. We met again a few days later. Ethan came in a hurry and hugged me and kissed me as if we had been reunited after a long separation. He closed his eyes as if savoring it carefully. I think he should be savoring whether there was that chaos that Lisa mentioned in this kiss. I pushed him away, and he quickly averted his eyes in a flustered manner, with a look of guilt and confusion in his eyes. A dense pain welled up in my chest again. This time, I was sure that the suffocating feeling in my chest was indeed disappearing. Since he used me first, it seemed reasonable for me to use him as a withdrawal medicine. During the following period of time, with my indulgence, Ethan became more and more fearless. He was hot and cold towards me. When he needed me, he would show his affection for me crazily. Once he achieved the goal of provoking Lisa, he would ignore me again. Only when Lisa distanced herself from him again would he remember me, this tool person. And I just pretended not to know anything and humbly and carefully played the role of his loyal follower. And his friends also knew that I was a substitute who had come to him on my own initiative. They would speak sarcastically and say that I was a simp, and sometimes they even forgot to avoid me. Truly, I turned into a total simp, groveling just to be with him. No shame, no limits. At that time, Ethan would just symbolically ask them to stop talking. He was constantly testing my boundaries. When he found that my indulgence had no limits, he showed less respect for me. And I endured the heartache of being betrayed and played with. In this process, I was gradually completing my withdrawal. I clearly felt that every time Ethan, with Alex's face, gave me orders arrogantly, my attachment to Alex would decrease a little bit. I rarely had that dream anymore. The suffocating feeling in my chest was also almost gone. I was using this humiliating way to say goodbye to Ethan and to Alex little by little. I thought I was about to succeed. That night, I dreamed of Alex again. Alex seemed to sense something and said goodbye to me. He said, "Long time no see, Lily. Are you almost forgetting me? If forgetting me can make you happier, I have no problem with that." In the dream, his figure gradually faded away, and there was still the bloodstain on his neck that I had made with the dagger. I woke up in tears, my heart aching so much that I couldn't breathe. So, like a self-rescue measure, I dialed Ethan's phone number. He said it was a coincidence, and he was just about to look for me. He said his car had broken down on a rural road and asked me to pick him up. I didn't hesitate to go out. When I got there, I found out that he had gone to his hometown to pick up Lisa, who was sick. Before I could say anything, he took the initiative and told me not to misunderstand the mutual care between them as childhood friends. I don't know if it was to avoid suspicion in front of me or to continue provoking Lisa, but he chose to sit in the passenger seat of my car and left Lisa alone in the back seat. Unfortunately, as soon as the car drove onto the rural road, it collided with an out-of-control tractor coming from the opposite direction. I thought of the back view of Alex leaving in my dream. My heart was so flustered that I desperately turned the steering wheel. Ethan was unharmed. I was hit by the airbag and my eyes were bloodshot. I was trapped in the driver's seat and couldn't move. In a trance, I heard Ethan's heart-rending shouts. He was shouting for Lisa. At that moment, I clearly felt that the suffocating feeling pressing on my chest was about to disappear completely, and my withdrawal was about to succeed. But when I woke up in the hospital, Ethan, with red eyes, broke up with me. He looked at the bandage on my forehead that was oozing blood and said tremblingly, "It was just for fun. Why did you take it seriously?" I was so scared that I cried and begged him, "We can break up, but can you wait a little longer? Just wait until I succeed in my withdrawal." I was so embarrassed and humble that it made the people around me whisper. There was a look of pity in Ethan's eyes, but in the end, he clenched his fists and fled in a hurry. I knew he was scared. I risked my life to save him, and he couldn't bear it. But does such a playboy also fear trampling on someone else's sincere feelings? Or maybe it wasn't fear. Lisa was injured, and he wanted to fight wholeheartedly for himself, right? Anyway, for whatever reason, my withdrawal was interrupted, just when I was about to succeed. I lived in fear for 3 months, always worried that the big stone would fall again. However, it still came. After having that dream again, I woke up suddenly. I curled up on the bed and shakily lit a cigarette. The smoke spread out, with the familiar smell from the dream, but my heart ached more and more uncontrollably. That's when Ethan's call came in, like a life-saving straw. His deep voice, tinged with a bit of grievance, came unexpectedly. "Everyone at the bar has left. Lily, why haven't you come to pick me up and take me home yet?" That voice was exactly the same as the one in my dream. Instantly, my eyes filled with tears. I fought back a sob and asked him softly where he was. But then wild laughter burst out from the other end of the phone. Many people were laughing. The previous deep and aggrieved tone disappeared without a trace. Ethan laughed so hard that he was out of breath. "You're crazy. I'm playing the game of truth or dare. This is just a dare I chose, to complete a challenge set by someone else." I felt like I had been splashed with a basin of cold water. The sad emotions burst out, and the suffocating feeling pressing on my chest unexpectedly lessened suddenly. The withdrawal medicine started to work again after 3 months. So I choked up and tentatively said, "You can call me whatever you want, but as long as you come home with me." The laughter grew louder, and there was a hint of pride in Ethan's voice. "Can't you understand? I'm playing a game. Don't be so persistent." Sure enough, the suffocating feeling became weaker and weaker. I got up and extinguished the cigarette. "Tell me where you are, Alex. Let me see you one more time." The other end of the line went silent immediately. After a moment, "Damn it, who the hell is Alex?" With Ethan's angry shout, there were whispers coming from the other end of the phone. "Damn, isn't she Ethan's simp? Why is she calling another man's name? Ethan, are you okay? She probably thought you were that Alex just now and agreed to pick you up. You should lose this round." Ethan lost face and gritted his teeth and cursed me. "Don't think you can fool me by making up someone out of thin air. I've given you a chance. I've sent you the address. If you don't arrive within half an hour, don't even think about getting back together." I quickly drove out according to the address Ethan sent me. Although the suffocating feeling wasn't as strong as at the beginning, it still made me very uncomfortable, like a stone pressing on my chest. I knew that Ethan would definitely want to get back the face he lost from me, and he would do it with double the force. The more excessive he was, the more beneficial it was for my withdrawal. Perhaps this humiliation would be the last strong dose of medicine for my withdrawal. If I failed, it would mean that Ethan, as a withdrawal medicine, had already developed resistance. I should change the medicine. The bar was extremely lively. Most of the people who stayed up late were there to watch the show. They wanted to see how Ethan would humiliate the simp who had called out the wrong name. When I entered the bar, they were checking the time on their watches. Damn, it really didn't take more than half an hour. Did she run all the red lights on the way here? Ethan is so amazing. Are women these days so shallow? Do they really only care about looks? She's being played like this, and she's still chasing after him? Ethan was still leaning in the dim corner without saying a word. The light and shadow covered half of his face, making him look even more like Alex. The moment our eyes met, the sadness like drowning slowly welled up again. Perhaps my involuntarily reddened eyes pleased Ethan. He curled the corners of his lips and smiled at me. Then he picked up the wine and poured 3 full glasses. He said in a condescending tone, "Drink all of these, and I'll forgive you." As he spoke, his face was illuminated by the light. Looking at him like this, it really seemed as if Alex had stepped out of my dream. I don't know why he came back to me. Did he have a falling out with Lisa again, or did he truly find something good in me? But it didn't matter. What mattered was that this time, the suffocating feeling was almost gone. The smile on my lips immediately attracted mockery. God, is she so happy that she's clutching her chest? Ethan, why don't you teach us your training skills another day? You've trained her so well that she's so obedient. The words were harsh, but they didn't affect my excited mood at all. I picked up the wine glass and drained it in one gulp. The first glass is for myself, for my persistence in pestering and not giving up easily. There was a chorus of boos, mixed with soft sneers. Damn, isn't she so cheap? She comes when called and leaves when dismissed. Ethan let his friends sneer at me. Not only did he not say anything, but there was even a hint of pride on his lips. I took a deep breath and felt that the big stone on my chest had finally been lifted. So I picked up the second glass and looked straight at Ethan. The second glass is for Ethan, for the Ethan who never showed me any kindness and didn't treat me as a human being. This time, the whispers turned into loud laughter and curses. Damn, she's so cheap. Ha ha ha. There really are people who like this kind of thing. Ethan, I'll sign up first. Don't throw her away when you're tired of her. I also want to experience it. Ethan frowned slightly and gave the speaker an unhappy look. But he still let me finish the second glass of wine. My chest felt more relaxed than ever before, completely relaxed as if I had never dreamed of Alex. I felt a bit dizzy. I grinned and my steps became unsteady. I grabbed Ethan's hand and brought it in front of me to examine it carefully. The webbing between his thumb and index finger was delicate and smooth. I was sure he had never held a gun. When I turned his hand over, there was a faint scar on his forearm. It was too faint. It didn't feel right when I touched it. Alex's scar was deeper. It was too noisy around. It seemed that they were saying I was too casual and crazy about Ethan's body. Ethan rarely put away his playful expression. He soothed me softly. He said, "You're drunk, Lily. Don't worry. Let's go home now." Amid the jeers, he stood up to support me. But I pressed him down and stared intently at his open collar. Just one last confirmation, and then I'll be reborn from the flames. Under the disdainful, curious, and ambiguous gazes of everyone, I slowly lifted Ethan's collar. That's right. There was no mole on his collarbone. There were no signs of it being surgically removed either. Ethan sucked in a breath of cold air, and his voice became a bit hoarse. Lily, not here. Amid the whistles, I suddenly understood. Ethan was definitely not Alex. As a withdrawal medicine, he had already exerted his maximum effect. After that, he would be of no more use to me. I suddenly pulled away and picked up the third glass of wine. Ethan finally showed a look of pity and raised his hand to stop me. You can't drink anymore. You're drunk. Before he could finish the word, drunk, he met my extremely clear gaze in surprise. I looked at him with a smile. This third glass is to commemorate our short and ill-fated relationship. I tilted the glass, and the wine slowly spilled at Ethan's feet. Ethan, you played the part well, but after all, you're not my Alex. Under his angry gaze, I let go of the glass. The shards of glass flew up, like a shattered colorful dream. When Ethan realized that the person named Alex might actually exist, his face darkened menacingly. He threw the wine glass and kicked the person who was jeering. He said, "Lily, if you apologize to me and soften your attitude now, I won't hold it against you." I glanced at the mess on the floor and smiled at him. Don't be like that, young Master Ethan. If you don't hold a grudge, you won't be like my Alex. But when my Alex holds a grudge, he doesn't just throw wine glasses or kick his subordinates. When he's really angry, he doesn't say a word. Instead, he picks up a gun, cocks it, and doesn't forget to attach a silencer at the end. As I spoke, I mimicked holding a gun with my hand and aimed it at his head. Bang! The veins on Ethan's forehead bulged. I took one last look at him and turned around with a smile and left. The chaos behind me had nothing to do with me anymore. I wiped the tears from my face. Goodbye, Alex. Since I left resolutely once, I shouldn't come to bother again no matter what. After that night, my life returned to normal. Alex no longer came to my dreams. When I was idle, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Ethan actually sent a message to me through someone else. That person said, "I've never seen Ethan so angry. He even hung up on Lisa's call and decided to go home with you. As long as you take the initiative to find him and say something soft like you used to, you'll have made it through." I directly deleted and blocked that person. I had indeed made it through. I didn't feel like having angina every day, and it was much easier to work. Coincidentally, the theater troupe started rehearsing a new play. The popular actor, Jason, was paired with me. He came to the theater troupe to hone his acting skills, and the troupe attached great importance to him, even customizing a new script for him. But the moment I got the script, I felt my hair stand on end. It was a tragic love story of life and death. The male and female protagonists were from different camps. After going through tests and flirtations, their psychological defenses gradually crumbled. Their true feelings were masked by lies, and they sank in a blur of love and desire, neither knowing if it was real or fake. At the final moment of decision, the male lead was the first to shoot at the woman. That's right. There were no bullets in the gun. The woman's dagger slashed open the man's neck, and the man smiled and admitted defeat. In the next life, he said, in the next life, you have to take me home. An invisible hand suddenly choked my throat. Sorrow was like the rising tide of the sea, drowning me in it. Is the male lead named Alex? I murmured. That's when Jason came in. He strode in from outside. Against the light, his silhouette seemed to be edged with a golden glow. A group of people were walking and discussing something with their scripts in hand. He nodded politely and distantly at me and then naturally sat on the sofa beside me. The name Alex is not bad. Let's use it, he said. With just that one brief gaze from his almond-shaped eyes, I had an illusion. An illusion that he had come for me. After that, he focused on talking with the director on the other side until his assistant brought over some fruit tea. While discussing the details, he casually picked up a cup and placed it in front of me, still as if we had a tacit understanding. I stared at his profile, which was completely different from Alex's, and gradually lost my focus. Until Jason's slightly deep voice came. He said to the director, then let's try the scene first. If Miss Lily has no objections. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at me with an inquiring gaze. I came back to my senses. The scene to be tried was the intimate scene at the moment of farewell. The director wanted to see how much tension there was between us when we acted together. No matter how good the play was, without that sense of atmosphere between lovers, the popularity of the play wouldn't be high. Naturally, I had no reason to refuse. However, it was inevitably awkward to try an intimate scene on the first meeting. The director thoughtfully cleared out the irrelevant personnel. During this interval, Jason routinely asked me if there were any problems with the level of intimacy. I said I had already read the script and could accept it. Jason nodded and then started to take off his suit jacket. Underneath was a black slim-fitting shirt that outlined his slender waist. 2 buttons were undone, and the contrast between his cold white collarbone and the dark fabric created an alluring scene. As Jason undid the buttons, he raised his head. Unexpectedly, I was startled by the intensity and determination in his eyes. The so-called drama maniac entered the role with just one glance. The gentle, elegant, and courteous gentleman from before was long gone, replaced by the wild and unruly outlaw in the play. He stared at me and approached step by step. The fierce and desperate expressions flashed alternately in his eyes, and finally turned into unwillingness. He dejectedly embraced me as if in surrender. He turned me around and pressed me against the wall, searching me from behind in an embrace. When he didn't find a weapon, he bit my neck in regret. When I turned my head in pain, my cheek hit his lips. He closed his eyes and kissed me chaotically and painfully, without any rhythm. He kissed my hair, the bridge of my nose, and finally, he firmly captured my lips. I made a sound of pain, but when I opened my mouth, it was a choke. Alex, are you going to do it? I knew that according to the scene in my dream, his gun should be pressed against my waist. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. But Jason raised his head. He looked at me intently and affectionately, and gently wiped away my tears with his thumb. Damn fate, he said. As he spoke, he threw his gun into the bathtub as if surrendering. When the gun sank to the bottom of the water, Jason curled the corners of his lips and smiled, a relieved and beautiful smile. Then he lowered his head and kissed me passionately and wildly. He kissed as if there was no tomorrow. The director forgot to call a stop to this scene. It was only when Jason suddenly pulled away and turned his head to scold him that he came to his senses and exclaimed, "Good, good, very good. This emotion is great. But, Mr. Jason, why did you change the script on the spot? Weren't you supposed to shoot and then Miss Lily kill you?" Jason regained his gentle and elegant demeanor. After handing me a tissue, he started to straighten his shirt. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, "The male lead's way of dying is so frustrating." My hand that was wiping my face stopped, and I looked at him in disbelief. On countless nights when I woke up in a start, I had also resented like this. I resented why Alex forced me to kill him and made me bear the guilt, but such resentment was buried deep in my grief and seemed insignificant. Sensing my gaze, Jason turned his head. Am I right, Miss Lily? He asked softly. Before I could answer his question, the noisy sound came from the door. Ethan burst in angrily and quickly. As my ex-boyfriend, the staff didn't try their best to stop him. His face was terrifying. He grabbed my wrist. Just now, you called him Alex? Jason had just fastened the buttons of his shirt. Alex is just a character I'm playing, he said, and then he extended his hand to Ethan in a gentlemanly manner. Nice to meet you. I'm Jason. Ethan didn't let go of me and arrogantly ignored the hand Jason extended. Jason frowned slightly and tapped Ethan's elbow with his fist. Ethan immediately winced in pain, curled his arm, and let go of me. Please respect my leading lady, Jason said. Then he pursed his thumb at the corner of his mouth and wiped off the lipstick mark one had left there. Ethan was furious, but he insisted on having a talk with me. He said he had consulted my psychologist and knew that I was ill. I don't know how the doctor talked to him, but anyway, he understood the situation a bit differently. He thought that because I couldn't have him, I made up a person in my dream who was exactly like him and named that person Alex. In my dream, I fantasized that Alex was completely devoted to me and loved me desperately. He thought I was ill because of him. So, there was a look of guilt in his eyes, but there seemed to be more pride. He said, Lily, it's my fault. I didn't know I would hurt you so deeply. I looked at him inquisitively, unable to figure out where his train of thought had gone wrong. He seemed to feel sorry for me and came to pull me. Before, you always touched my neck at night. It turned out that you dreamed that you hurt me. Lily, you endured so much pain when I didn't know. I avoided his hand, and he said awkwardly, I know you hate me, but at that time, when you picked me up, I thought we had a tacit understanding that it was just for fun. I didn't expect you to be so deeply in love. If you had shown the slightest bit of vulnerability, I would never have hurt you like that. I stared at his face and was in a trance for a moment. I was wondering if the Alex in my dream would have the same expression in the moments I didn't dream about. This dreamlike tragic love finally revealed its flaws after I got some relief. Ethan continued to convince himself. Lily, it's my fault. You actually used the actor you're paired with to heal your heart and called him Alex. I shouldn't let you down anymore. Stop being angry, and I won't blame you either, okay? This was the first time Ethan had lowered his stance towards me. After saying that, he looked at me hopefully. After a moment of silence, I suddenly laughed out loud. The corners of Ethan's mouth also curled up involuntarily. But I said indifferently, did the doctor tell you when I started dreaming about Alex? He looked a bit confused. He didn't say that, and then showed a look of pity. But we've known each other for almost half a year. Have you been this miserable most of the time? He was still basking in his good sense of self. I leisurely brought up the medical record on my phone and held it in front of him. 3.5 years. Ethan, I've been dreaming about Alex for 3.5 years. That bastard Alex has been torturing me for 3.5 years. Fortunately, I met you, a scumbag who looks exactly like him. I stared into his eyes and said word by word. I used you to get over him. Ethan stood there dumbfounded, and his cheeks visibly turned red. Don't be angry first, I said calmly. You know, you haven't really suffered any losses. For almost half a year, he could call me whenever he wanted and send me away at will. I was always generous with clothes, money, and other things. And I also served as a catalyst for his relationship with his childhood sweetheart. In any case, he didn't lose out. I helped him remember clearly that I didn't owe him anything, and then I told him that, both emotionally and rationally, he shouldn't come to me again. This mutual use could be considered a good end to our relationship. Ethan stood there stupidly. When I had walked a long way, I suddenly heard him laugh. First, it was a soft sneer, and then it turned into a wild and loud laugh. Just like on the phone that day. Damn it, he was arrogant and pitiful. The days that followed were much quieter. Instead of the suffocating feeling, there was a sense of emptiness in my chest. Fortunately, the stage play officially started filming, and that little bit of emptiness was completely disrupted by Jason, that drama maniac. He often changed the script unexpectedly. A tragic love story that was originally full of suffering for the sake of suffering was completely changed by him into a story of unfulfilled love after bravely pursuing love. During the early stage of the script, when it came to the teasing and testing parts, he didn't follow the script at all. He said that only unexpected collisions could make Miss Lily have a sudden feeling of being touched. He really did it. Every line that he blurted out unexpectedly made me lose my focus. The director said that it was very much like being truly touched. I was finally gradually touched by someone other than Alex. My slightly reddened cheeks, the tremors that spread from my chest to my eardrums. I was like a secret admirer caught by Jason, being casually controlled and manipulated by him. At first, I passively accepted those touches. Later, Jason started to ask for more. He said that he also needed me to give him those unexpected teases. Only when we were evenly matched could it be truly captivating. So I looked up at him in confusion and seriousness. Are you like this? Do you like me? He was slightly taken aback, and then he smiled. You learn quite quickly. So we both laughed. The director was a bit confused and shushed. Are you acting or is this for real? Actually, I wasn't really sure if it was acting or real, but I saw that Jason's earlobe turned red just for a moment. This kind of state gave birth to something called hormones, which spread throughout the theater all day long. When we gradually brought this state into our time after work, news of Ethan came again. Ethan had a car accident. By the time I got the news, he had already removed the bandages. He had many injuries on his body, but they were all minor. However, it was said that he had injured his brain, and he was desperately looking for me in the hospital like a madman. Helplessly, I could only agree to answer his call. On the phone, he was silent for a long time. Finally, his hoarse voice was choked with sobs. Long time no see. Lily, are you almost forgetting me? If forgetting me can make you happier, I have no problem with that. After months of withdrawal and the high walls of my heart that I had built up, at that moment, they all came crashing down. My bag fell to the ground, and I didn't care to pick it up. I ran outside like a madman. Jason grabbed my wrist, and his brows furrowed. This scene isn't over yet. Next, it's your turn to break the rules. I was slightly dazed, but I couldn't think about anything. My mind was full of the thought. Ethan is Alex. Ethan is Alex. Jason finally couldn't hold me back. I ran towards the hospital and directly to Ethan's hospital bed. The bandage on his injured wrist had been removed. There was a deep wound winding there. This time, it was exactly the same as Alex's. I lifted his collar, and a small mole had just appeared on his collarbone. I slumped into the chair behind me. Just then, I met Ethan's red eyes. He said, "Long time no see, Lily." Just with this one sentence, I was sure that it was Alex inside this body. He stared at me for a long time, and his eyes welled up with tears. This was a long-awaited reunion after he had experienced life and death. There was a sense of relief in his eyes for having what was lost returned, but there was more infinite regret for the harm he had caused in the past. He said, "Lily, I had a long dream. In the dream, I was called Alex." He looked at me sadly. That wasn't really a dream, was it? Of course, it wasn't a dream. The feeling of heartache was so clear. The deep love, even if it was hidden in a dream, was unforgettable. Dense pain welled up in my chest again. The infinite love for Alex that had come back to me when I woke up in the middle of the night came back again. It came for no reason, but it was irresistible. I remembered the dagger I had swung, and I remembered Alex's triumphant smile. "Don't forget me, Lily. Take me home, Lily." The missing that had been aimless for 3 whole years now had a place to land. I thought I was about to rush over and hug my Alex, the person destined for me. Although it always seemed that I shouldn't, I couldn't help myself. Just then, Jason's call came in. "Miss Lily, would you like to have a private date with your Mr. Alex tonight?" Mr. Alex. When this word appeared, a string in my mind was disturbed. After a month of rehearsal, when I heard the word, Mr. Alex, the first thing that came to my mind was Jason's complaint. He often said, "The person who loves you would never be willing to let you kill him with your own hands." The voice on the phone continued, "Miss Lily, I want to discuss the final plot with you tonight. How should we change it to sublimate the theme of breaking through the sense of fate?" My mind gradually cleared, and I held back the urge to hug Ethan. Right in front of me, Ethan was still murmuring, "Lily, that wasn't a dream. It was real. The dagger hurt so much when it cut my neck, but no matter how much it hurt, it wasn't as painful as a life and death separation. Lily, I thought I would never see you again." That trace of clarity in my mind was once again annihilated by the overwhelming suffocating feeling. 2 forces kept pulling at me, and it took all my strength not to open my arms to Ethan. I think I did the right thing. Because the next moment, that girl named Lisa rushed in. She hugged Ethan with a sobbing voice and buried her face in Ethan's arms. She was obviously terrified. She said she almost thought she had lost him. She was full of regret. It seemed that she had finally seen her true feelings in the face of life and death. She wanted to take Ethan to get a marriage license. Like a basin of cold water poured over my head, I instantly woke up. Jason's complaint came at the right time on the phone. "How can you tolerate such a cheesy plot, Miss Lily?" I adjusted my emotions and smiled. Some truth was about to be revealed. I agreed to Jason's date. When I fled from Ethan's ward, Ethan was coldly confronting Lisa. His sinister eyes and fierce words were completely different from the previous Ethan. The change was very abrupt. I took the opportunity to leave as if I were running away, but I still couldn't escape wave after wave of inexplicable emotions. I managed to dial Jason's number. The moment he appeared, I couldn't wait to hook my arms around his neck. You said you wanted to discuss the plot. Can we discuss it any way we want? There were tiny lights in his eyes, and he smiled. As long as you're willing, I'll accompany you to the end. So for the first time, I took the initiative to kiss him. I carefully savored the feeling brought by that kiss. The feeling of being touched was real. The love was soft. It wasn't the so-called suffocating feeling. My fate seems to have been decided by someone long ago. After ending that kiss, I looked up at Jason. You know that, right? He smiled but didn't speak. After a while, he gently tucked my hair behind my ear. Your fate can't be decided by others. What about the author? I asked calmly. If I say that this world is a novel, will you believe it? Jason looked at me for a while with an inquiring gaze. What are you thinking about? You're not going to abandon me with the theory of fate after provoking me, are you? I didn't see any clues in his eyes, so I resumed my cunning smile. I didn't provoke you. We're just discussing the plot. I took the initiative to end that topic, but the doubts in my heart were answered. I was sure that I had developed feelings for Jason, but I still couldn't help myself and was without hesitation when I saw Alex. This was unreasonable. I thought that, just as I had guessed, my fate was indeed written by someone else. He set it up so that Alex was the destined person. This conclusion wasn't a sudden idea. I had started looking for the reason since the moment I went to see the psychologist. The person who suddenly appeared in my dream, the missing that extended from the dream to reality, all of this was abnormal. Until I successfully completed the withdrawal, I thought I had escaped the invisible control. However, that script appeared again. It recreated the scenes, forcing me to relive the tragic love with Alex. It wanted to regain control of me. In order to finally verify this guess, I said goodbye to Jason and went to the church that had been frequently appearing in my ears recently. The priest there seemed to be waiting for me on purpose and took the initiative to ask if I was troubled by love. I took the opportunity and asked him to hypnotize me. The dream was extended. Sure enough, there was Alex in my past life. All the scenes in the dream had really happened in the past life. We were in love but on opposite sides. After a painful decision, Alex decided to leave the chance of survival to me, and I also died of depression not long after his death. This hypnosis, all the information told me that Ethan now was the Alex from the previous life. All the signs were shouting that now Alex had awakened, and we should resume our previous fate. In addition to these, I also saw something else. There were some scenes that had never appeared before. They were displayed there very vaguely, as if there was some reason to erase them. I tentatively asked the priest, are those gradually disappearing pictures the original track that Lily and Ethan should have had? Those original settings didn't happen because of my withdrawal behavior, so they were being erased. The priest dodged his eyes and chanted mysteriously, it can't be said, it can't be said. By now, what else was unclear? Even if he didn't say it, I had already guessed it. My life is a novel. Or a play. My joys and sorrows all depend on the author's pen. I am grateful for Jason's appearance. He led me to question the script and Alex's frustrating suicide behavior. He led me to mock this damned sense of fate with practical actions. Now, everything is clear, and I think I know what to do next. That night, Ethan was somehow held up and didn't come to find me again. I was finally inspired and finalized the final version of the performance with the director overnight. Early the next morning, Ethan appeared at the entrance of the theater with his injuries. With just one look from a distance, tears streamed down my face. He looked at me haggardly and intently. It seemed that thousands of words were pale and powerless, so he said nothing. I asked my colleague to give him a ticket in the front row. Today's first trial performance, as if deliberately arranged, allowed us to relive the hardships of the past together at the moment of our reunion, trying to offset the harm Ethan had caused me before. When the performance started, Ethan sat silently in the audience. Just by looking at his demeanor, he had completely become Alex. So throughout the whole play, that sad and desperate emotion was not an act for me. When Jason kissed me, I couldn't help but shed tears. When Jason described the future to me, there was no longing in my eyes, only despair. Jason frowned deeply. He tried to give me a sense of security and lead me to break through fate, just like during the rehearsal. However, as I wished to speak but stop on a second thought, he finally also began to look preoccupied. The colleagues around were shocked to find that the development in our play was exactly the same as the original script. The changes that had been painstakingly made and the sparks that had collided were not presented at all. The whole performance was depressingly abnormal. At the last moment, the despair in my eyes finally infected Jason. He hugged me from behind and searched me intimately. He deliberately ignored the dagger hidden in my waist. He bit me and then kissed me chaotically with his eyes closed, as if he wanted to engrave this feeling deeply in his bones. At the most passionate moment, a pistol was pressed against my waist. Alex, are you finally going to do it? Bang! The gunshot rang out, and I turned around and slashed open Jason's neck. Blood gushed out, and Jason smiled triumphantly. Lily, don't forget me. At that moment, I couldn't tell whether it was in the dream or in the play. I burst into tears, and Ethan in the audience was also in tears. I read certainty from his eyes. Although he was sad, he was certain. Seeing me crying, he was certain that I still loved him deeply and that we would eventually resume our relationship from the previous life. Those dreams that belonged to us made every second of our eye contact seem like a tacit understanding. The aching pain in my chest almost made me believe it myself. If Jason hadn't suddenly sat up. The dying Jason, after murmuring, "Don't forget him," suddenly sat up from the ground. Damn it, he moved his neck. Is this male lead fucking crazy? Then he got up and helped me who was crying. If you want to die, go and commit suicide. Why let others bear the sense of guilt after you die? Who the hell is this director? If he can't do the job, he should get the hell out of here. The play didn't end. This was the final version that I had already discussed with the director. A play within a play. The colleagues watching excitedly whispered and took the lead in instilling the new concept into the audience who were immersed in sadness. Yeah, why does he want to die by someone else's hand? Isn't that disgusting? Isn't this just moral kidnapping in the guise of deep affection? He also doesn't want to be forgotten and wants to be taken home. What's that about? Is it preparing for the reunion in the next life? It's really low. These days, this kind of suffering for the sake of suffering, not even a dog would act in it. Ethan's face darkened visibly, and he forced himself to calm down and carefully examined me. He wanted to see some clues from my expression. I raised my head with Jason's support. When I saw the wound on Jason's neck, I told him in disgust to go and wipe it off quickly. Jason said, "It's you who are obsessed with this crappy novel and insisted on experiencing the so-called selfless love like Alex. That's why I cooperated with you to act out this scene. Now you're disgusted with me?" I wiped the paint of the wound on his neck with a tissue and pouted. If you don't experience it yourself, how do you know that the one who survives is the most painful? According to the script, not only do you have to bear the guilt for a lifetime, but you also have to compensate for the debt in the next life. It is said that in the next life, you will be called a simp and be ordered around by him. Only after being tortured physically and mentally will the male lead be willing to retrieve the memories of the previous life. Then, with the blessing of the favor of saving his life, the female lead will reluctantly get back together with him while feeling disgusted. After I finished speaking, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan clutching his chest with his hand. His chest was still heaving under his restraint. I knew that kind of pain. How many times in the middle of the night when I woke up from a dream, it tortured me deeply. I wrapped my arms around Jason's neck. It was clearly his own choice. He didn't fight for their love. Before trying any possibility, he went to his death. I strongly suspect that he actually had self-awareness. Jason smiled dotingly at me. What self-awareness? I guess he might have known that he wasn't a match for the female lead, so he used this despicable method to make the female lead feel guilty towards him for 2 lifetimes even if she won. Jason smiled noncommittally. This sentence was purely made up. But I couldn't help but want to return the humiliation I had endured for so many years immediately. Ethan had curled up in the chair, in great pain. His shoulders drooped, and his silhouette was full of despair. It was impossible not to feel pain in my heart, especially after that hypnosis, which made me relive the previous life between me and Alex again. But if I want to break free, I have to shed a layer of skin. In the last scene of the play, Jason asked me, after experiencing all this, "Do you still think that my love for you is not as deep as Alex's in the play?" I knew that he had something specific in mind. He was asking this question for himself. I looked deeply at the audience. Those intricate ties and that faded feeling of wanting to rush forward regardless of everything made it difficult for me to speak. However, I didn't want to surrender. I didn't want to surrender to the controller who controlled my fate but refused to give me a little pity. So I grabbed the life-saving straw that Jason extended to me. I immersed myself wholeheartedly in Jason's gaze. There was full of love there, and there was my true feeling of being touched. So I said firmly, "That damned fate is just self-deception of those who are self-moved. I was just following a drama. Why are you taking it seriously? I just had a dream, and I won't take it seriously." Jason hugged me affectionately. The curtain call music sounded, and there was a fragment of the actor's narration in it. The so-called destined person doesn't exist. If there is one, brave girls, it is also the one that you are willing to recognize with your heart. In this, there is no room for the slightest compromise. The curtain fell, and I saw Ethan slowly collapse on the bench in the front row. Then he was completely isolated outside the curtain. This stage play with the theme of new female thinking was a great success in the first trial performance. I will go on a tour with Jason for dozens of performances. After that, I never saw Ethan again. I think that Alex, whom I once loved deeply, was at least tenacious. Sooner or later, he would, like me, gradually find the flaws in that uncontrollable situation. We are both people controlled by fate, and I sincerely wish him to break free from the shackles as soon as possible. After completely getting rid of Alex, my symptoms gradually improved. I was almost certain that I finally got rid of the pen that controlled me. In the last performance of the tour, Jason finally officially confessed to me. It wasn't on the stage or in the rehearsal room. In a private place, he officially separated from the role in the play and solemnly asked me if I would like to be with him. Once again, I saw certainty in someone else's eyes. The tacit understanding from dozens of performances, the ambiguity during countless rehearsals, and those moments of true emotions made him clearly know that we were attracted to each other. He looked at me firmly. Lily, thank you for breaking through the obstacles and coming to me. He held the ring in front of me, full of anticipation. I didn't reach out my hand. I raised my head and asked indifferently, making me willingly put on your proposal ring. Is this your strategy task? Jason was shocked and stood there dumbfounded. The ring fell to the ground. The drama maniac who could easily control countless roles rarely showed a flustered expression. After a while, he came to his senses and then laughed at himself. He said, "That's right. How could the female lead who can break free from fate not see through my tricks?" I didn't say anything. Actually, I didn't know that he was a strategist very early on. At first, I only suspected that he had something to do with Alex. Seeing him constantly emphasizing breaking free from fate, I thought he was the salvation in the dark. Until Ethan awakened. I saw panic in his eyes. That panic didn't seem like the panic of losing a lover. So after knowing that this was a novel, I had such a bold guess. It was just a guess. The certainty just now was also just a test with a bit of probing. And he gave me the worst answer. The room was extremely quiet. The intimate relationship without whitewashing looked fragile and false. The sweet moments in the past came flooding back, slapping Jason in the face. He lit a cigarette. The smoke made him frown and squint his eyes, as if it was going to make him shed tears. I broke the silence first. If the strategy is successful, what will happen? He stared at me through the smoke for a long time. I will leave and return to my world. Jason should be a bit afraid. Who doesn't want to go home? He was only one step away from success. He must be afraid that I won't let him succeed. I picked up the ring that fell on the ground and examined it carefully. The place close to the skin was engraved with the abbreviations of our names. He had put some thought into it. Even without knowing my size, he could buy a ring that fit just right. I put it on my finger, and Jason's tears fell. He pretended to be choked by the smoke and covered it up with a violent cough. Don't feel guilty. I smiled and wiped the tears from my cheeks. We are just getting what we need. Jason looked at me in confusion. Since he was a strategist, then I think he should have known long ago that the psychologist gave me two options at that time. One was to withdraw through Ethan. The other was to transfer my affection. Jason was just another medicine for me. From the moment I saw the script and then met him, I had some doubts about him. Since he was brought to me, there was no reason not to use him. Jason understood immediately. After being silent for a while, he suddenly laughed. He chuckled twice, then took a big puff of the cigarette and burst out laughing. I also laughed. He picked up the red wine glass next to him. I clinked it with his. Happy cooperation, my Miss Lily. Very happy, my Mr. Alex. We were so happy that tears streamed down our faces. The last performance ended perfectly with a curtain call. Jason hugged me on the stage for a long time and didn't want to let go. Goodbye this time, my Mr. Alex. Leave with confidence. I'll be fine. I don't love either you or Ethan. I won't love the arrangement of fate, and I won't love the player holding the chess pieces like a pawn. Even if it is salvation, I am unwilling. Breaking free from fate like shedding a layer of skin is to want my love to be just because of love, not for anything else. Jason finally let go of his hand and turned around to bow and take a curtain call. And I, after experiencing two passive and unforgettable experiences, finally have the right to love freely.